What's going on, guys? Jeff back with a video today. So I've been wanting to do a tutorial on how I make my fuel drums for a while. Finally, I got some free time to do that. If you've seen my video on all the fuel drums I've made, I'll link it in the description in case you haven't. Then you know I've produced a lot of these. And for a while now, I've wanted to go and do a step-by-step process video on how I make these for you people out there. I know I've had some questions on them. So this is a video basically detailing how I make these in case you want to make your own. I had some downtime, so I decided to put together this video for everybody. It's kind of like a pseudo tutorial. I'll also put a link in the description for my decaling process as well. I've been working on a lot of cool projects, and today I produced this Sasquatch fuel drum for a set I'm working on. I also made the oil can as well. So this video back in the shop is going to detail how I went about making this. So without further ado, let's go back to the shop and we'll do a tutorial on my authentic one-of-a-kind fuel drums. What's going on, guys? Well, today's video, as you saw in the intro, is about how to make a custom fuel drum. I've made a lot of these, and if you're interested in seeing some of the ones I've made, I'll put a link to the video I did on all the fuel drums I've made in the past in the description. But today I'm going to talk to you about actually how to do these fuel drums, or how I go about doing them. I've sold a lot of these on eBay and Facebook, so I've got a pretty good handle on how I make them. Everybody can make their own. Obviously they could do it differently, but this is the process I go through when I make these fuel drums. So we're going to go in this video and I'm going to show you how to get from here to here, as well as my heavy duty motor oil drums from here to here. Super simple processes. Like I said, anybody can do them. First and foremost, I should just start with a regular coffee can and peel the label off. That's basically the blank, as I call it. And that gets to this point, which is the fuel drum. And this oil can, I start with this Four Sigmatic mushroom mix. I buy a lot of this stuff. It's good for immunity, but that's not what this podcast, or not what this video is about. And then I create this from this. So I'll pause the video, come back, and we'll discuss all the intricacies of these fuel drums. Alright guys, so we'll do the fuel drum first. Now, like I showed you in the intro, this is just your basic coffee can. You can use any type you want, really. When you peel the labels off, obviously there's some glue, so I like to use a product like Goo Gone to remove all the excess glue, and then I kind of wipe it down with rubbing alcohol to get any film that was on there. Then I go through and I mark where I want the gauge and where the hose comes out. I just use about, I don't know, like a 1/8 inch drill bit to start out. Then I kind of figure how the hole needs to be. Then I drill these holes. I don't have a specific measurement I use. I just eyeball it. And at this time, I'll also add the gas, the filling cap for the drum. You can use anything you want for those. I tend to use the sheet metal screws, either these tiny little ones or the big ones. It doesn't really matter. You can use Phillips head ones. That's just what I use. I like the hex head ones. They kind of look a little more authentic. At that point in time, I will make molds and also cast the fuel nozzle, the pump hanger, as well as my fuel gauges. They look a little rough, but I'll clean them up. I'll tell you that these right now are done with old molds. I need to make new ones. I've used so many molds that they're kind of getting a little crummy and brittle. So when I pull my castings, they haven't been as good lately, which is an indication I need to make new molds. Ideally, if I had a 3D printer, I would 3D print a lot of this stuff, but I don't really have one of those right now, and at some point in time I'd like to get one and experiment with it, but this is what I do. I'm just old-fashioned with everything. So we get these all cleaned up, and then, you know, from here you'll drill the holes and figure out how the diameter you need to get these to just slide in there. All my stuff is mounted with either Gorilla Super Glue or regular Gorilla Glue. So this is all glued on there. The fuel hose, as you can see in this one, I use standard paracord, melt the ends, glue the pieces together. This is the prime blank, so we drilled the holes, mounted the fuel cap, primed it, ready for paint. So at that point in time, I'll decide what colors I want to do, and I'll paint all the cans, and I'll paint the hardware, the fuel nozzle gauge, the hanger, the pump handle. I'll get all that painted, and then paint the can and decal it. So in today's video, I mean, this is pretty brief, it's a really simple video. I'm going to make this can into a Sasquatch hunting fuel can. So I'm making like a Sasquatch set with some boxes and a fuel drum and a motor oil fuel tank or fuel drum, and I'm going to paint them all up and make them a set together. So that's kind of what I'm going to do with this. I'm going to paint this one, get all the hardware painted, mount it all, decal it, and then you'll see what it looks like as we go along. So it's kind of just like a weird video of me showing you how I do this stuff. So we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the motor oil drum. Okay, so these motor oil drums, got this idea. I used to make fuel cells out of these mushroom containers, but they switched over to these small cardboard containers, and I had a ton of those and I didn't really know what to do with them. So one day I was thinking, it would be nice to have a small motor oil container to go with my fuel drums. So I painted one of these up, threw some decals on them, and made these heavy-duty motor oil drums. I just fill the inside of these with foam. I do the same thing with the fuel drums. I fill the inside with foam, basically just to eliminate the void and give them a little weight. I think it just makes a little better product, in my opinion. But this is a real basic build here. I just prime this, paint it whatever color, decal it. It's real. These are real simple to do because it's just a motor oil container. I don't put any caps on them. I probably should, but I just don't. Maybe at one point in time I will. Maybe with this one today I'll put a fuel cap or a motor oil cap on it. But these are simple to do. I've made a lot of these. These are pretty popular right now with a lot of people. So. All right, welcome back, guys. So, as you can see, I've drilled out the hole for the fuel gauge here. Got it mounted, roughly mounted. I'll take it off and paint it. Now we're going to make the shaft that the hose comes out. And I use a 5/16 inch styrene tube and 1/4 inch styrene tube. So I kind of create like a little sleeve, here, like a sleeve. And I just plasti weld that, then cut it with a miter box so it gets kind of like this shape like here. And then I'll mount that in the hole here. And I want to mention that I usually mount this prior to painting the drum its final color. I usually like to have this the same color. In the past, I've done it and made this black or metallic color, but I like to usually just make it the same color as the drum. It's kind of cohesive that way and it looks better. So that's the next step, just mounting the hardware. And then after that, we will paint the drum. And I'll show you what decals I'm going to put on it, and then I'll also kind of give you a brief tutorial on how I do my hoses and my other hardware. I did decide to go ahead and put a cap on this oil can. I've still got to prime it and then decal it. That'll be finished as well. So when we come back, this should be taken off. This whole thing will be painted its final color. That'll be mounted, and you can see what the final color is going to look like for this Sasquatch fuel drum. Alright guys, so I got the can all painted and the oil drum all painted as well. Take off this decal. With this nice neon, I don't know if I call it neon green, this nice vibrant green color I had some paint for, and I had it lying around and I kind of wanted to figure out what I wanted to use it for. I had it for another project, but I thought it'd be cool to use for this particular fuel drum build. So I've also got the oil can painted. And now the next step is decaling. Before I get started there, I got the pump nozzle and hanger molded and ready to go. I'll go ahead and do the decals next. I've went ahead and created some. If you've seen my video on how I do my custom decaling, I'll post a link to it in the description of this video. But I've got my decal sheets ready to go. I've also got these new style G.I. Joe logos I did on my Canon printer. And I've got the fuel drum decals as well. I'm going to go with this cool Sasquatch logo I kind of put together, since this is going to be a Cryptozoological Division Sasquatch unit fuel drum for a set that I'm putting together. So that's the next step, is getting all this decaled using my method for my custom decals. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll come back and I'll show you what it looks like before I peel the decals off and then after I peel the decals off, so you can get a feel for what the steps look like. Like I said, if you've seen my decal video, then you kind of know how this all works, but for those of you who haven't, please watch it. It's not for everybody. I think I had a couple dislikes in that video, probably because it's kind of hard to do, and some people just don't like to do hard stuff, and I get that. So we'll be back in a few. All right, guys, welcome back. So I've decaled them. If you've, like I said previously, if you watched my decal video, you know I used the matte gel and the Mod Podge to decal this stuff. So the regular fuel drums, it's all done. Got it all on there. Got the flammable gas, the control handle. Got the Sasquatch logo here on the back. I put this G.I. Joe decal, and then it says Caution Flammable G.I. Joe Adventure Team All-Purpose Fuel Cryptozoological Division Sasquatch Unit. So that needs to dry for a while, and then I'll peel those off. And I went ahead and did the oil can as well. It just says G.I. Joe Adventure Team Heavy Duty Motor Oil. Got the nice Adventure Team logo. Again, the Sasquatch logo, and I put the late 70s G.I. Joe logo on that as well. So those will sit and dry. And then after they set up, the gel medium sets up and pulls the ink off the paper and adheres it to the can. We'll peel those off. I should mention I also put the gas gauge in there as well. You can see that. So After that dries, I'll peel the decals off, and then the final things we'll do is I'll put the pump handle and the hanger, I'll mount those, and I'll get some parachute cord. I think I'm going to use neon orange parachute cord because I'm doing a crate that goes with this set, and I'm going to have handles, carrying handles, braided neon parachute cord carry handles, so I'm just going to go ahead and kind of make it all cohesive so it all works. But I'll do the hose and the carry handle, or the pump handle and the hanger, and blah 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 blah, and then I'll put one final coat of Mod Podge on both of them to seal everything up, and then this will be done, aside from having to fill the inside with the expandable foam. So when we come back, we'll have the decals peeled off. What's going on, guys? Welcome back. So I got the decals done, and I let them cure for a while, and then I went ahead and peeled them off. And it turned out pretty dope, actually. You can see the Sasquatch looks good. The font turned out well. Everything's on this can, ready to go. Same thing with the heavy duty motor oil. Turned out really well. Here's the box that I'm going to have with the Sasquatch set. And here's the paracord I'm going to use. I'm just going to get some thicker paracord to do the fuel hose. This is for the box, obviously, but this is about fuel drums and oil cans today. So this thing's pretty much finished. We'll come back here in a bit. I got to go buy some paracord, but we'll mount the fuel pump handle. The hanger's already mounted. And also, something I forgot to mention, I fill the fuel gauge with epoxy resin. So it's like a clear epoxy glaze. And I just mix a little bit, fill it up, and it dries crystal clear. So it looks like a lens. If you've ever purchased my fuel drums, or you've seen them in other videos that I've done, you'll see that I've done that with those. But that's kind of like the very last thing that I do, is fill the fuel gauge with resin, or glaze, or whatever you want to call it, to finish it off. But all that's left to do really is to cut the fuel hose, burn the ends, mount them to the fuel pump handle, and then thread it through the shaft here into the drum, secure all that, fill the drum with expandable foam, fill the oil can with expandable foam, let that set up, and then do the lens last. We'll go through all that basic stuff here as we proceed, but I just wanted to show you how the decals turned out. And they turned out really well. Like I said, they're pretty dope. I'm happy with the way they turned out. Something I wanted to mention that I don't really talk about too much, but I use two different types of fonts. This is the distressed font. I tend to use it more than the regular font, and here's the reason why. It's kind of a cheat code. So with the distress font, there's room for error. So like, for instance, this G didn't quite take as well as I wanted it to, but that's okay because the decal's distressed. So it's kind of like a battle damage look. Same thing with the portion here. I just leave those the way they are. It's a distressed look. I'm comfortable with it. Kind of gives it a little bit of an aged or played with look. So that's kind of why I do that. Now, if I'm really, really taking my time, I will use the other style font, the solid black font. I don't use it a lot, but when I do, I really take my time to make sure I do it as completely accurate as possible. Like, I don't skip any steps. I make sure there's no air bubbles or anything else like that in the decal when I mount it. So I just think the distress gives me a little more room for error on these decals, which is, like I mentioned in my decal video, I can go back and use a Sharpie and touch up the solid black whenever I use it, but I normally just like to use the distressed because I just think it looks cooler. I use it way more than the other decal, but I just wanted to address that with you guys because I'm sure some people see the different fonts and always ask me what I'm using. So, but that's the reasoning. So I'll get some of this orange paracord bought, and we'll come back and I'll show you how long I usually make it. We'll mount it to the drum, put the pump nozzle on, and we're almost done with this fuel drum tutorial. Alright guys, welcome back. So I went and bought the paracord. Cheap stuff from Hobby Lobby. I went ahead and did the hose. You can see what I do here. Pull this out so you can see it. Just tie a knot, melt the end, thread it through the shaft that I made here, the sleeve, and then I just go ahead and glue the paracord to the end of the pump nozzle. And basically it's done, ready to go. I just use a simple butane torch, right, and just melt the end of the paracord, make it all clean. So the hose itself, I usually go around 16 to 8 inches in length for these. I'll give it a little bit. In the past, I've made them a little shorter, but I kind of like to give it a little extra hose. I've toyed with using the shovel rack for the 5-star Jeep. I cast some of those hangers for that. I've tried to figure out a way to put these on the cans to hang the hose, but it just doesn't work real well. So until I get that figured out, I'm not going to mess with that. But anyway, this can's essentially done. Both of them are. Now the next thing is just get some cheap foam, expandable foam, and I'll fill the insides. And what that does is the expandable foam locks basically everything in the can in place, so you can't pull the cord or the hose or anything out. So kind of makes it nice and clean on the inside. Gives it a little bit of weight so it stands, properly. And you can see it's a pretty much finished fuel drum. And then after that, after I fill these two with foam, I let it sit, and then I'll take the let me grab this real quick. Hold on. So I just use this wood glaze, epoxy resin glaze. That's what I fill the gauge with. It's a 2-part deal. I just mix a little bit and just pour it in there, like I said previously, and just let the resin level out and it dries to a crystal clear finish. So I'll fill these with foam and get the gauge finished, and we'll come back with a few final thoughts on this fuel drum project. Alright guys, welcome back. So I went ahead and did the epoxy. As you can see, it's still setting up a little bit, so it's still a little tacky, but it should be dry here in the next 10 hours or so. I went ahead and filled the inside of the can's cavity with the foam. Did the same thing on the oil can here, so those are filled. Now, essentially the can's done. You can see you've got the G.I. Joe logo. Everything's completely finished on here. Wrap the hose a little bit. Put it back on the hanger. Now the last thing I do basically when I get all this finished is I go ahead and I take this satin Mod Podge and I seal the whole can. So I coat the whole thing with it. And what that does is it just gives it kind of like a protective coat over the paint and the decaling and the other parts of the cans. Now in the past I have used a lacquer sealer from, I believe, Krylon maybe, but I don't do that much anymore. The reason being is that sometimes you can get a bad reaction for whatever reason between the paint and the decals with the lacquer. It happens 20% of the time probably, but when it happens, it's a complete disaster. So I just use the Mod Podge, and it turns out really well. It gives it kind of a nice matte finish on the whole can. So essentially this can's done. I won't show you the Mod Podge afterwards. I mean, you can pretty much figure it out for yourself. It's pretty self-explanatory. So this is basically the process I use to make these fuel drums. So if you guys are interested in doing it yourselves, it's pretty simple to do. Like I said in the description, you can see my link to my decaling video. As far as molding and casting pieces, that's pretty easy to do as well. You can watch a lot of videos on YouTube that kind of break down how to do that, probably a lot better than I do it. But this is essentially how I make my fuel drums. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Now you've kind of got an idea what it takes for me to make one of these. And you guys out there who have complained about the prices I charge for them, maybe you won't complain as much. I don't know. I don't give a shit either way, actually. But yeah, this is it. This is my fuel drum tutorial. Hope you enjoyed it. Like and subscribe to the page. Share the videos. Hit the notification icon. And until next time, guys, cheers.